Hello there, I am Johnny from Green Herb Gaming. A couple of weeks ago I made a fun prediction for E3 2018. I predicted that Nintendo will announce their latest handheld at E3 2018. And interestingly enough, last week Nintendo confirmed that they are in the research and development stages with a new game system. So a new Nintendo game system is currently being researched and developed. And then, I think a couple of days after that announcement, a patent that Nintendo filed appeared online. Nintendo filed a patent for a game system. So I am here to make a bold prediction for what I think Nintendo's next handheld will be like. So now I'm not going to discuss this patent too much, but I am basing my prediction off the patent. Now I've looked into this patent a lot. I've studied the hell out of this patent, so I'm not going to go too much into detail with the actual patent, but I just want to point out that I am basing my prediction off this patent. Now I will give you a quick summary of the patent. The patent describes a game system, two screens that are capable of communicating with each other, and again, the patent goes into a whole lot of detail. It shows images of these two screens communicating with each other. It shows like a finger going from one screen to another screen, and they're two separate screens. You know, I'll give an example. One of the images showed one screen facing down, and it had bowling pins displayed on the screen, and then the second screen was above the first screen, and it was like tilted up, and on that screen it showed a bowling ball, and basically the bowling ball rolled from the second screen that was tilted up down into the first screen that was facing down. So
Journey.
The patent goes into a lot of detail. On that. So I'm going to leave a link to the patent in the description below, so you can have a look at the patent in your own time. I don't want to go too much into detail about the actual patent, so I'm going to get just stuck into my prediction right here, right now. I think Nintendo's next handheld will be designed very like the DS and 3DS, in that it will have two screens. It'll have the clam-shaped folding design, and also obviously it'll have buttons and, you know, motion control built in and stuff like that. But the biggest difference being, I think you are going to be able to actually detach two screens from the system. So the two screens will be completely free from each other. So you will have images displayed on the two screens, but completely separate to each other. Okay, I'm kind of starting to ramble now a little bit. What am I doing? I'm starting to ramble now a little bit. Okay, I suppose I should get stuck into there's two parts of the patent that I actually want to focus on to back up my prediction. Let me just get into this chopper first. Sorry, I'm kind of gone off track here now, big time. I'm just going to hover in the sky if that's possible. Is that possible? Okay, I think it is. Okay, I'm going to have to read this out, so the gameplay is going to have to be suspended a little bit. Okay, so these are the two parts of the patent that I want to focus on. Okay, and this is quoted now in the patent. Heretofore, which if you don't know what that means, it means before, basically. It's a fancy name for before. So, before, various types of game apparatuses provided with two screens have been proposed. For example, in a game apparatus described in Patent Literature 1, two LCD screens, namely a first display unit and a second display unit, are arranged across a gap. In this game apparatus, one game space can be displayed using two display units. For example, an object displayed on the first display unit can be displayed so as to move to the second display unit across the gap between the first display unit and the second display unit. Now, that is interesting. To me, that is describing the design of the DS and 3DS handhelds. Because that to me describes two screens that are arranged across a gap. So the DS, the top screen, the bottom screen, they are displayed, they are arranged across a gap. And it talks of images being sent from one screen to the second screen. So if you think of a game, like what was it? Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Insights. Oh God, was that what it was called? But you know the way in many DS games you have images that can go from the top screen to the bottom screen. Now, there really isn't any doubt about that theory. That they are literally describing the DS and 3DS, because again, heretofore means before. It's saying before various types of game apparatuses provided with two screens have been proposed. For example, in the game apparatus described in Patent Literature 1, two LCD screens, namely a first display unit and a second display unit, are arranged across a gap. In the game apparatus, one game space can be displayed using two display units. For example, an object displayed on the first display unit can be displayed so as to move to the second display unit across the gap between the first display unit and the second display unit. So that is literally describing the concept of DS and 3DS. Two screens, images being displayed from one screen to the other screen. But here is where it gets interesting, and this is what I believe backs up my prediction for Nintendo's next handheld. And again, this is quote. This comes under the previous section that I just called out there. However, with game apparatus described in Patent Literature 1, there is a problem in that since the two display units are fixed, the degree of freedom with which the game space can be set is low. That is, there is a problem that since the positional relationship of the two display units is fixed, the images that are displayed are also subject to restrictions. Note that such a problem is not limited to game apparatuses and can occur in any apparatus that uses a plurality of display units in combination. The present invention was made in order to solve this problem and aims to provide a game system, a game method, an information processing apparatus, and a game program that are able to use a plurality of display units in combination with a high degree of freedom. Now I believe, it is my belief, that they are 100% describing a handheld system like the DS and 3DS, but giving you the freedom to detach those screens from each other, so you can have situation, as I described, where you can have one screen, you know, facing down, we say on the table, showing an image of bowling pins, and then a second screen is like, you know, standing up above the first screen, showing the bowling ball, and then a bowling ball rolling from, you know, the second screen to the first screen. That's what it's describing, in my opinion. It is describing being able to remove these two screens and freeing up the gap, you know, that's just between those two screens. Patents can be boring. They can be boring. So my apologies if this prediction video is boring, but yeah. So I suppose I'll kind of touch upon the core of my prediction, which is a handheld system, pretty much identical to the DS and 3DS handhelds, with the biggest exception being that you can actually remove the screens. I am also predicting that you can remove the button sections, a bit like the Joy-Cons and how they can be detached from the Switch. So I believe that this handheld will function just like a 3DS and a handheld. Like if you want to play your games in the traditional sense, you know, where you have the top screen, the bottom screen, the buttons, you know, everything you would expect from a DS and 3DS, I think it'll be just like that. But I think the biggest selling point to this new handheld will be the fact that you will be able to at any time detach those screens, free up those screens from each other, and have a crazy gaming experience, as I described with the bowling type game, where you have one screen facing down showing the bowling pins, and the second screen then tilted up showing the bowling ball, and it just gives a different experience because you can like free up the free the space between the two screens. I think Nintendo explain it better than I do. Again, I will leave the description. So I'll leave the link to the patent in the description, so you can, you know, check it out yourself. I've been looking at it in great detail, and it does show like two screens interacting with each other, communicating with each other, completely free, you know, freed up. Like they're not limited to just one fixed position. You know, it's a complete. So God, Christ, this video is actually getting boring, isn't it? My apologies. I wasn't going to go too much into the detail with the patent, you know, because it is quite detailed, but it does describe a gaming system provided with two screens, and also has a control unit, which I believe will be the buttons. You know, a bit like Joy-Cons, possibly. Oh God. Oh. Damn it. Yeah, so this is like my handheld prediction / Far Cry 5 gameplay. A bit like my previous video actually. So what do you think of this patent? What do you think about Nintendo's next handheld? Let me know in the comment section below anytime. But before I end the video, just want to recap everything I've said in a nice short and sweet way. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago I made a fun prediction. I predicted that Nintendo will announce their latest handheld system at E3 2018. Had no idea as to what the handheld would be like. But last week Nintendo confirmed that they are in fact researching and developing a new game system. And then a couple of days after that, a patent appears online. Nintendo filed and published a patent for a new game system, and in that patent it basically shows two screens separate from each other, like two completely separate screens interacting with each other. You can see a finger going from one screen to another, like sending information, sending images, sending the display from one screen to the other screen. And it gives an example. I think it gives various examples actually. One of the examples is actually an image of a banana. How random is that? So basically, how can I describe this now in words? Basically, it shows one section of the banana. The majority of the banana is shown on one screen, and the minority of the banana is shown in the other screen. That sounds messed up, doesn't it? But what I basically mean is, like, it shows the player having to position the banana in the correct position. So they slide your finger from one screen to the other screen to basically drag the image of the banana into the correct position. Does that make sense? So that's another example. Another example shows it again a bit like Alleyway, not like Alleyway or Breakout game where you have to like hit a ball into blocks. It shows that. It shows the one screen having the bar, and then the other screen showing blocks. So you probably would literally be moving the bottom screen to kind of. So I suppose what they're really showing in the patent, is the display, the images being completely freed up. Like, think in your head, right? One screen has a missile, but it needs to go like all the way over to the right. So your screen basically needs to go all the way over to the right. So it's kind of like your second screen is following the information, relaying the information from the first screen. So it's basically freedom of display is what they're proposing. Freedom of display. Like, it's not a fixed display. Like, if you look at your TV screen right now, you look at your smartphone screen, your laptop screen, whatever screen you're looking at, it's a fixed screen. Every image you're looking at is fixed. It's in the one position. Even the DS is where they got the idea from. Like, the DS has two screens, but they're fixed. Like, the DS is essentially one screen. When you stop and think about it, that's essentially what the DS is. It's essentially one screen. It's just halved. There's a gap between the first section of the screen and the bottom section of the screen. That's what a DS is. What I think what Nintendo are proposing in this patent for this new handheld, I think it's going to be a new handheld anyway, is freeing up the gap between those images. Journey. Again, if I'm not making much sense, just have a look at the patent for yourself, because I'm not very good at explaining stuff. I can read it in my head, but then when I actually go to explain it, it just becomes really boring. So yeah, I made my firm prediction for E3 2018 that Nintendo will launch a new handheld, and Nintendo said that they are in the research and development stages of a new game system, and then this patent comes along, shows two screens communicating with each other, and it's just those two points that I mentioned, like I think really back up my prediction. So my actual prediction is a handheld system, very like the DS and 3DS, in that you will have two screens, obviously buttons, everything you would expect from a DS and a 3DS, except big difference here being that you can detach those screens at any time you want, and just have a completely different type of experiences, mental experience. Things get really interesting actually when multiplayer gets brought into it. They showed one crazy image in the patent of there was like 3 screens that were like kind of being connected up, and it showed a cube. Like, you had one screen that was flat down, and then you had 2 screens that were standing up. One screen was standing up like on the back, and the other screen was on the right hand side of it. So basically you got like an almost 3-dimensional monitor, a 3-dimensional screen. If you're with me here, and it showed that banana. It showed one section of the banana and the bottom, then the other section was kind of going up behind, and it's hard to describe. It's all there in the patent. So things get really crazy when multiplayer kind of gets brought into it. But I also want to point out, it's important to point out as well, it's not going to be just complete touch kind of screen buttonless experience the whole time. It'll just, think of your DS right now, think of your 3DS right now. It'll basically be that. It'll still be that experience, but at any time you'll be able to remove those screens and to free up the images, free up the display, which has never really been done before that I can think of anyway. So I'm basing that prediction off. So it's not that I'm actually. It's funny really, because when I say I'm predicting it, like, it's not like I'm basically, I have the information in front of me. I'm going with the information. It's just funny that a lot of people aren't looking into the patent as much as I am. You know, but I think it's very beneficial if you want to try to predict, you know, what this thing is going to be. I think it's very important to actually look at the patent, because all the information is there. I mean, it's Nintendo filing the patent, you know, it's not IGN or GameSpot or Eurogame or whoever. Like, it's, you know, Nintendo are the ones making this system, so if you want to get the information, then get it from the patent. You know, don't get it from the people who are reporting on the patent, because chances are they're not going to read the patent in its entirety. I'm hoping to actually read it in its entirety. I'm on the final section of the patent now, so, but it really seems to be describing this concept of freedom of display. It's a word that I've just crowned that phrase now, like freedom of display. Like, I don't think it's going to be a fixed display anymore. I really think you're going to be able to just, like, think of a situation, right, where you're saying, I'm just giving a rough example here, right? A very simple concept. Let's say tennis. Okay, let's say there's a game of tennis. Right, and let's say one screen is showing one player, you know, on one end of the tennis court, and the second screen is showing the other player on the other end of the tennis court. And the character on the first screen is, you know, is hitting the tennis ball, and that ball will basically travel from one screen to the other screen. Do you get what I'm saying there? I think that really kind of represents a very interesting. It just shows what I mean by freeing up the display. Like, I can't kind of. I'm not doing a good job explaining it. Like, I think if Nintendo do make this a reality, I think they will explain it far better than what I'm explaining. And everything is in the patent anyway, like, and I will leave the description in the patent as soon as this video gets uploaded, and I'll edit it. Like, if it isn't there when you're watching it, it will be there eventually. It will be there eventually. I just, I'm uploading this through PlayStation, so it might take a while for it to upload onto YouTube. But once it's there, I'll leave a link to patent. I suppose really there's nothing else to say. I suppose in short what I am predicting is this patent, in my opinion, is describing. Oh, wait a second, incoming call. Listen, I will talk to you later. Thank you for watching.